Bro, Soldier Boy got betrayed, captured, frozen for 30 years. Came back out, and his first instinct was not therapy, not healing, not character development. His first instinct was violence. Immediate, unfiltered, zero hesitation. 30 years in a box, and this man came out worse than he went in. Not a little worse. Significantly worse. Deadass. Bro fumbled his entire redemption arc before it even started. No raise, no chill, no growth whatsoever. Just pure, unhinged 1984 energy in 2024. And the scariest part, he was like this before the box. The box did not create the problem. The box just gave the problem 30 years to marinate. Cooked does not even cover it. Let that sink in.
Okay, gang, let us start from the beginning, because the lore here is generational. Soldier Boy, real name Benjamin, no last name, just Benjamin, which is already sus. Born in 1919, grew up during the Great Depression, became a superhero in World War II, and immediately decided that this made him the main character of all of human history. No cap. This man had main character energy before main character energy was even a concept. He was the first major superhero in the Vought universe, America's original champion, the face on the posters, the Sigma of his generation. He used all of that power to be one of the most toxic people in the entire show. Respectful. Bro had S-tier powers and F-tier emotional intelligence. That is the whole character. That is the entire lore. Now here is where it gets certified unhinged. Soldier Boy did not end up in that Russian box by accident. His own team put him there. His own people. The people he fought with. The people he trusted. Payback. His superhero team sold him out to the Russians in exchange for their own safety. And why did they do it? Because Soldier Boy was, and I need to be very specific here, absolutely insufferable to work with. Bro was the teammate nobody wanted. Took all the credit, gave none. Treated his team like NPCs in his own personal storyline. Never acknowledged anyone else's contribution. Demanded glazing at all times. Zero W Riz as a leader. Negative aura as a colleague. His team looked at 30 years in a Russian box versus one more day working with Soldier Boy and said, you know what, Russia sounds reasonable actually. They did not even feel bad about it. Caught lacking by his own squad. Huge L. Generational L. The kind of L that gets archived. Now let us talk about the box, because this is where the timeline gets unhinged. Soldier Boy goes into Russian captivity in 1984, the year of cassette tapes and shoulder pads, the year before the internet existed, the year Ghostbusters came out, and he stays there for 30 years while the world moves on without it. The Berlin Wall falls, the internet gets invented, September 11th happens, the iPhone gets released, social media becomes a thing, Obama becomes president twice, and Soldier Boy still in the box, vibing, except not vibing, the opposite of vibe. Scientists actually studied what happens to humans in long-term isolation, and the results are certified emotional damage. Sensory deprivation for extended periods causes hallucinations, severe anxiety, paranoia, cognitive decline, personality changes, increased aggression. Basically everything that was already wrong with Soldier Boy got worse. The box did not break him, the box just deep-fried what was already there, and what was already there was already fully cooked. Womp womp. Now here is the part that actually broke me. Soldier Boy gets out of that box after 30 years. And instead of taking a moment, instead of processing, instead of any kind of character development whatsoever, bro immediately starts causing chaos. No adjustment period, no culture shock, no, wait, what is a smartphone moment? Just straight to the villain arc. Deadass. He came out of 30 years of Russian captivity and within 48 hours was already creating significant problems for everyone around him. That is not resilience, gang. That is just someone who never stopped being unhinged. Even when they were frozen, the box paused him. It did not change him. He came out the exact same person who went in, except now he also has PTSD and responds to certain triggers by releasing a nuclear blast from his chest. Different, unfortunately. And now, here is the educational part. Because Soldier Boy is not just a character. Soldier Boy is a whole psychological case study, and it hits different when you understand the science behind it. Psychologists have studied what happens when someone gets frozen in a specific time period mentally. They call it crystallized identity. When someone's sense of self gets locked to a specific era and refuses to update. Soldier Boy locked in at 1984. Everything after that does not compute. The values he had in 1984, still running them. The way he treated people in 1984, still doing it. The worldview he had in 1984, completely unchanged. Bro is a walking F-tier update when a world that has patched everything around him. And here is the wild part. This is not unique to Soldier Boy. This is a documented human phenomenon. People who go through major trauma or extended isolation often get psychologically stuck at the point before it happened. Their personality freezes. Their beliefs freeze. Their emotional responses freeze. And when they come back into the world, they are genuinely confused why everything feels wrong. Because to them, nothing should have changed. They're the same. Why is everything else different? Soldier Boy is not just a villain. Soldier Boy is what happens when trauma meets ego, meets zero emotional support system, meets superpowers. That combination should not exist. Vought created it anyway, and then put him on a poster. Absolute cinema.
And then there is the Homelander situation. And I need to approach this carefully, because this is where the lore gets deeply unhinged. Soldier Boy is Homelander's biological father. Let that sink in. The most toxic superhero of the 1980s created the most toxic superhero of the 2020s. A generational trauma speedrun. Any percent, no skips. Homelander spent his entire life wanting a father figure, wanting approval, wanting someone to say, you are enough, you are valid, you did good. And when he finally meets Soldier Boy, his actual biological father, Soldier Boy looks at him and basically says, you are mid, actually. Respectfully. Emotional damage instant. No recovery. Bro, Homelander went through his entire villain arc partly because he never got parental approval. And the one time he gets close to it, his own father mogged him. The cycle of trauma is fully cooked. Nobody in this family has ever touched grass. Nobody in this family has ever been to therapy, and the entire world pays for it. Womp womp.
Here is the hot take. Soldier Boy is not just a character in a superhero show. Soldier Boy is a commentary on America specifically, on the idea of the old guard, the people who were great once, who built something, who had power and influence and respect, and who cannot accept that the world moved on. Cannot accept that what worked in 1984 does not work in 2024. Cannot accept that being a legend in the past does not automatically make you relevant in the present. Bro had generational clout, fell off completely, and instead of adapting, instead of doing any kind of personal growth, instead of touching grass and recalibrating, he just got angrier and blamed everyone else. That is not a superpower problem. That is a very human problem. The show is basically asking, what happens when someone who was once genuinely great refuses to evolve? And the answer is Soldier Boy, standing in 2024, running 1984 software, confused why nothing works anymore, caught lacking by his own timeline.
Soldier Boy is one of the most unhinged characters ever written for television. Not because of the powers, not because of the violence, but because everything about him is rooted in something real. The trauma of isolation, the toxicity of unchecked ego, the damage of generational patterns that never get addressed, the tragedy of someone who could have been genuinely goated and fumbled it completely. 30 years in a box, and he came out worse. Not because the box broke him, but because he was already broken, and the box just gave him time to be more of what he already was. That is not a villain origin story. That is just what happens when nobody ever tells you to touch grass. Brain Rot University, where the lore is deep and the therapy bills are fictional.